Earl, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think Councillor Turner has just mentioned many of the things that I was going to make mention of, but I think I want to concentrate on child poverty. But first, I'd like to find myself in the strange position of agreeing with Councillor Ridgway and what he said about rural poverty, because I think they are fundamentally different. You know, I think some of the worst deprivation, some of the worst living standards and some of the worst poverty that I know that I've ever seen has been during time I've spent in some of the most isolated areas of the United Kingdom. And I think urban poverty and rural poverty demand different approaches, and I think it is absolutely right that we recognise that they are fundamentally different in the effect they take on the individual, but also on how we as an authority should deal with them. But one of the things that really concerns me in recent years has been the growth of child poverty, because after a continued fall since the 90s, it's now on the rise again. And as we've just heard, hospital admissions for malnutrition have been going up consistently since 2011, and anecdotal evidence absolutely suggests that a lot of that is parents, usually mothers, if we are honest, who are going without food to feed their children. And to me, those are people who are living in a completely unacceptable standard that we should be prepared to take in Britain in 2016. It's not okay, it's not right, we absolutely have to deal with it. But as well as families who are living in poverty now and have always been, there's a group who have been labelled the precariat. That's people who are getting by just without government help, but are really only an unpaid bill away from falling into absolute dire straits. And I know this is true for my life. I actually can't think of a situation where it's not true, that you're only ever a couple of strokes of bad luck away from being one of the people we're referring to in this strategy. Poverty isn't something that happens to other people. It is a state of living that anybody can, and most people often have been, victims of. And when we talk about child poverty, we know that poor children often become poor adults. Of course, there are exceptions, people who've succeeded despite the odds, but there is a reason that we talk about cycles of poverty, that we talk about a poverty trap, because it is a trap. There's the physical effect of living in poor housing, of eating poor quality food, if you get any food at all. There's the emotional effect of going to school without clothes that fit, of not being able to do the things that your friends are doing, of living in a house with one or two parents who are consistently depressed and degraded and downtrodden by constantly having to worry about money and having room for nothing else in their minds but how they're going to keep a roof over their own and your heads. And all these effects translate into individual and social problems that impact on the whole community, that impact on this council. And so from a social, but absolutely from an economic point of view, we have to tackle the causes and the effects of poverty as at an earlier stage as possible for individuals, for families, for communities. Because the number of children in poverty in the country and in Kirklees, the number of children in need, are rising exponentially at a time when we have an historically small amount of money to deal with those problems. So we're going to have to start thinking differently. We're going to have to start thinking radically. And tackling poverty needs to be at the forefront of all of our decisions and all of the things that we as a council are doing. So I absolutely support this strategy, and I hope that other members will, and I absolutely echo what some of my colleagues have already said. Thank you.